Find myself asking the same question, just kind of to God or the universe or, out in the ether. Are they really going to get away with doing all of this harm, breaking all of these laws, violating the Constitution with impunity? And there's always a pause because almost everything in me has started to believe that they would, that they just get to do whatever they want and nothing will happen because that's how power works in this country. Today, however, it's starting to make me feel like they don't get to unless we let them.
Mm.
So let me have an uncomfortable but necessary conversation. Every empire in the history of the world has fallen. Every empire and every empire that ever fell began with a whisper, a quiet shift in power, a quiet silencing of dissent, a quiet moment when the state stopped defending rights and started violating them. And it feels like right now, today in this country, we are watching a government more than flirt with the idea that it can detain, kidnap, punish, intimidate, and silence people with zero accountability under the disguise of security or law enforcement. People wonder, do they get to beat people, shoot people, disappear people, and just disappear them into the shadows with impunity? The answer to that question, only if we stop fighting, stop dissenting, stop calling it out, and most importantly, because I'm on the tipping point of this very thing myself, if we stop participating in our civic duties, if we stop voting, this thing they're simultaneously trying to strip away from us as a power and tell us that it doesn't have any power. They're trying to do both of those things at the same time, which should give you pause. If your vote really had no power, if your voice really didn't matter, why would they be going so far out of their way to take it from you? If we freeze in fear, if our frustration turns into hopelessness, which paralyzes us into apathy and inaction, then yeah, they will get away with it. Authoritarianism does not arrive in a parade. It arrives when good people say, well, what could we do? Listen, man, I may not be the best spokesperson for this because I know cynicism. I know frustration. I feel that weight. I live with it every day. I can't sleep because of it. We live in a country built on blatant contradictions. A country, a nation that preaches and celebrates, forgive my air quotes, liberty and justice for all, while actively practicing a hierarchy. A nation that idolizes freedom, but targets those that it fears or disagrees with. A nation that claims to be the beacon of democracy, while in plain daylight testing the limits of authoritarian muscle in real time. The truth: in a democracy, power is not taken from the people, it's surrendered to them. Slowly, quietly, one shoulder shrug at a time, one my vote doesn't matter at a time, one both sides are the same at a time, one I'm tired at a time. And I get it, because trust me, I am so tired. But fatigue is a strategy of oppression. That's the point. They want everyone to feel like I've began to feel. Like my vote doesn't matter. Like I've heard people say to myself and Ramses over and over again, both sides are the same. I'm tired. If they wear you down, you stop resisting. And that is the point. People do not wake up on one singular morning and the dictatorship has arrived. It happens in phases. Ramses and I have talked to some people who have mastered identifying these phases. Think Joy-Ann Reid. Think Stacey Abrams. Phase 1, fear. Phase 2, othering. Phase 3, dehumanizing those who you've successfully othered. Phase 4, selective, pointed violence. Phase 5, impunity. Phase 6, the one they're counting on most, silence and resignation. Right now, we're somewhere in between phases 4 and 5. And trust me, because this has been said to me by people who I care about, people who I thought knew me. I am not fear mongering you. This is history being made in real time. History talking, teaching, reminding. The question is not, can they do this? They've already been doing it. The question should be, will we allow it to continue? Here's the thing. Some people think that voting is symbolic. They view it as like a ceremony, a suggestion box, if you will. A lot of people, especially in places like California, that tend to vote the same way. You know, my vote doesn't really count or doesn't really matter here. I've mentioned before, when my mother became of voting age, my mother, not my grandmother or my great grandmother, my mother, voting was not yet legal for Black women in this country. Process that. And it should enrage you when you consider not using that power or exercising that right. Voting is our firewall. It is a lever, a shield. If we wield it right, a weapon against authoritarianism. People will convince you that you're naive if you think that your vote matters. Ramses and I will remind you it's because you're aware that you exercise that right. You vote to say, you don't get to disappear people in my country. You don't get to turn our agencies into your own secret police. You don't get to rule by fear and intimidation. And you don't get to tell us who counts as an American. Our ancestors did not die for voting because it was symbolic. They died for voting because it changes who has the power. Let me be as clear as I can. If a government can ignore due process, ignore transparency, ignore humanity, ignore the Constitution, and ignore accountability, it's not a government anymore. It's a gang with federal money. It's a gang with its own private army. And the only thing that separates those two realities is whether the people still have a say. Your vote is not a piece of paper. It's the difference between a state that serves you and a state that can disappear you. So, no, they don't get to do this with impunity. Not when we vote, not while we still can speak, not while we can still document, not while we can still organize, and not while we refuse to sit in silence. Democracy does not die when the powerful overreach. It dies when the public decides it's too exhausting to defend itself. I am tired, but I am not yet exhausted. I am awake. We need to all be awake. We need to all mobilize. We need to all learn a playbook. We are not giving our country away to strong men with fantasies of nostalgia for unchecked power. You do not get to rule here. Not here, not now. Not while we can still choose to vote, to show up and to fight.